Hey, it's time for another edition of the Cseekly Recap. I'm your host, Csomm, and I'm here to go a bit deeper into the topics that I've covered in my shorts. The footage behind is from the game Avowed. Let's get the show on the road. My first article of the day, it's all about Cory Barlog's next game, rumored to be a sci-fi title or a revival of a PlayStation IP. It's expected to be revealed in summer 2026 and released in 2027. Insiders suggest the announcement will occur at the May State of Play or Summer Game Fest. There is no denying that Cory is a very talented person, and he has a track record to prove that. So you could, from a certain point of view, predict that the game will be good, based obviously on the previous experiences that we have. Now, which game is that going to be? Obviously, it's very hard to predict. One of my viewers suggested it's going to be Jak and Daxter, which is a platformer that was released back in 2001, with latest release being at 2012 with Jak and Daxter Collection, which is essentially a video game compilation. Whatever the game that he is making might be eventually when it's released or when it's revealed, whatever comes first, unless they want to do a shadow drop, it's going to be interesting to see it, and probably it will generate a lot of buzz based on, nostalgia or how the game is constructed, stuff like that. So let's just say that I'm looking forward to see what this is going to be, and, hopefully we will be able to play it, not in like a couple of years, but let's say in a year max. Now, speaking of something being played relatively soon, Crimson Desert, an upcoming action-adventure game from Pearl Abyss, will be premium single-player experience without microtransactions. The game, which evolved from an MMO prequel to a standalone title, features a world full of distractions, a fixed story with a definitive ending, and a day-night cycle with dynamic weather. All of these descriptions, what the game has and what it doesn't, pretty much they're not that important considering the main thing, which is no microtransactions. I find it very sad in today's day and age that we need to really clearly specify that a single-player game will not have microtransactions. It's really sad, isn't it, when you actually need to clearly state this for a single-player title. Not to mention, I am tired of these microtransactions as is. I hate them from the bottom of my soul, mainly because we are talking about a digital good that cannot be resold or whatever in order to retain at least some of the value that you already invested into. It would be even better if you could actually earn money from those microtransactions. And while that might be a case for some games, more often than not, it's not. So basically, it's just money going down the drain, and when they shut down the servers or when you stop playing the game, stuff doesn't exist anymore. Even when we are talking about pre-order bonuses, that also makes my skin crawl. Just give us extra $10-20 and you will get this amazing horse armor or this glowing sword or whatever. Yeah, I don't really like these things. So, from a certain point of view, Crimson Desert seems to be like a beacon of hope in this grayness of shoving microtransactions everywhere. But at the same time, like I said, if you need to clearly say that a single-player game will not have microtransactions, that's a problem already. We will see what's going to happen in the future when the game actually comes out and see whether or not they will keep the stance with no microtransactions at all, or they will sneakily put some stuff inside. If that happens, it will probably be something along the lines of cosmetic features and not actual power, like we had in Ubisoft games, for example. But, I will monitor the situation and see what's going to happen with the game. Speaking about monitoring the situation, Moonbeast Productions launched a Kickstarter campaign for Darkhaven, an action RPG alongside a pre-alpha demo available on Steam. The demo offers several hours of gameplay, allowing players to experience the persistent sandbox world, the witch class, and the world-altering effect. The game supports solo play, cooperative adventures, and PvP, with every action contributing to a shared, evolving history. I played this particular pre-alpha demo, and you can check it out. I'll put a link in the description, as well as some kind of indication that you can access it during watching this video. And what I can say is that I essentially have mixed feelings about this particular game. I know it's in pre-alpha state, and I'm also taking it into account, but certain features are going to be there whether or not the game is going to be in pre-alpha, beta, or full release. For example, the terrain destruction. It sounds good on paper, but when you start playing around it and interacting with it, you can kind of see where the issues are coming from. Like I said in my review, when you are clearing dungeons, every single new area in the dungeon that you need to unlock, you actually need to destroy a wall before you progress, which to me hinders the, I would say, natural gameplay loop or pacing, so to speak. So yeah, it remains to be seen whether or not they will reach the Kickstarter goal that they set, which is $500,000. At the time of recording of this particular piece that I'm making, they have 26 days to go, and they managed to gather $172,000, which is not that bad. They already managed to gather around a third of the required funds. So who knows, we might actually see this one come to life, particularly since it's the original Diablo and Diablo 2 creators that are making the game, so that might be a factor that people are basically attracted to. I won't go into more detail in terms of what I liked and what I didn't like in this particular demo or showcase or whatever you want to call it. Like I said, there is going to be a link in the description or some kind of indication where you can check my review. The only thing that I want to say is that I wish them all the best, and hopefully they can make a revolutionary new ARPG the way that they always wanted to. So good luck, guys, and I reckon if you manage to get the game to pre-release, I'll see you there to try it out. This next story is interesting, and it's all about The Witcher's 2 political storyline that was a result of a last-minute decision to add an animated outro to the first game. It's interesting because that wasn't developed with the story team's input. That basically resulted to a shift of focus, so to speak, from Geralt's personal journey to a political intrigue involving Witchers and regicide. I suppose if you haven't played The Witcher 1, you will be able to experience all of this after they are done with the remake, which is going to be done in Unreal Engine 5. I don't really have any issues with what happened with The Witcher 2 storyline and then eventually in The Witcher 3 storyline. To me, it felt kinda natural. I always saw everything that was happening in those three games as a Geralt's personal story. It just so happens that him being a Witcher kinda drags him in everything, whether he likes it or not, because of his profession. You know, you gotta remove curse from this princess or that king and so on and so forth, and whoever placed the curse in the first place sees him as a threat, and not to mention any other connotations that might happen along the line. In this particular cinematic, which is at the end of Witcher 1, he could have been accused from a certain point of view that he was the one who wanted to kill Foltest, simply because the assailant was a Witcher as well, and he doesn't really need that heat on him, so, you know, it's basically a self-preservation tactic. But at the end of the day, you can always spin the story in a different direction, which basically happened in The Witcher 2 when Foltest was killed, and that resulted in a story which kinda pushed him again on his personal journey, I would say. I mean, it probably sucked for people who were writing storylines, because at the end of the day, everything kinda changed, so they needed to change stuff for the second game if they already had stuff in mind, but you know, it is what it is. I reckon you always need to be on your toes when you're a writer or something like that, that people decide that these things are going to happen, and then you need to check the whole story again to see whether or not stuff fits, but I reckon it's the nature of the job, so to speak. Also, CDPR kinda grew in a way that they don't really do these things anymore, so I reckon any story writer is probably safe from these particular changes or last-minute changes. Speaking of changes, Bethesda is working on a major update for Starfield, but it will not be a complete overhaul. The update will focus on enhancing the existing game, particularly in terms of space travel, and is aimed at players who already enjoy Starfield. While more Starfield content is planned, this update is not expected to fundamentally change the game for those who find it lacking. I will always repeat this as a parrot, and I don't care, but if you like the game and if you're enjoying the said game, more power to you. In my case, for example, Starfield was a slog. Even though I played 250 hours of it, for one reason and the other, I am definitely not planning to come in this game ever again, no matter what they do, because fundamentally, as far as I'm concerned, the systems that are bothering me are going to be there and they cannot be changed no matter what you do. In order for me to fully enjoy the game like I have in my mind, it will probably take a whole other game to be made with different stuff. And to be honest, I don't know if they will ever make Starfield 2 in comparison to Starfield 2.0 patch, especially if they think that this particular layout of the game or the way that the systems are interacting with each other is completely fine. Not to mention making the game in this type of a fashion, and if you want to do something completely different, will probably anger people who are enjoying it right now. That being said, I don't really know what's the ratio between people who really like Starfield and are still playing it in comparison to people who are like me who gave up completely on it. If we are going to take into account SteamDB as some kind of a reference point, from the start of 2025, the max count of people who were playing Starfield was around 7,000-8,000. If we want to make comparisons with other games that they produced, in this case, for example, Skyrim, you can see that these peaks are much higher, somewhere around 32 to 40,000 players, depending when you're looking at it. So only by checking out this metric, you can see that Starfield, as far as I'm concerned, is not that popular. So if I was a betting man, if Bethesda ever decides to make Starfield 2, it's going to be vastly different than what we see right now. In particular, I would say less loading screens and less planets to make it more of a contained experience. But that will basically make it Outer Worlds kind of a game where you have, 5-6 planets, a small area, and that's about it. Do they want to go to that particular direction? It can be debated, but then since Bethesda is always about big open worlds, explore stuff, do this, do that on a huge map, that doesn't really align with their philosophy, so to speak. And you can say whatever you want about the Outer Worlds, but at least people in Obsidian understood that if you're going to make a space game, so to speak, when you hop from one planet to the other, cramming the map with thousands of planets that there is absolutely nothing to do is not the best decision. So yeah, we'll see what's happening with Starfield patch 2.0, as in when the patch notes hit, what changes are they introducing, but moreover, I'm mostly intrigued what's going to happen in the future with Starfield 2 and how Bethesda will approach this particular problem in order to make the game better than what we have right now. And speaking about Obsidian, they have released an anniversary update for Avowed, which addresses player feedback by loosening the strict and punishing upgrade system. While the core gameplay remains unchanged, the update aims to provide a more gradual and less restrictive upgrade experience, allowing players to better explore and experiment with different character builds and playstyles. This update also includes new races and New Game Plus. When I made my review of Avowed, which you can check here if you wanna, I was playing it before the actual update came live, so to speak. And while the update system, which I heavily criticized, might have been changed, there are still so many issues with that game that makes me wanna forget it altogether and never touch it again. Things like storyline issues, things like combat issues, pretty much the core systems that you interact with while you're playing the game. So unless we are talking about a change that makes me, powerful enough in order to tackle the area that I'm in for like 50 to 60% of the time that I'm inside of it, then it kinda might be okay in terms of combat. But if it's just, you're just gonna be powerful 20% of the time, I don't find that appealing, to be honest. And not to mention, they already said that the core gameplay remains unchanged, so I don't think anything good is going to happen anytime soon. You can definitely say props to developers for trying to improve their game, but at the same time you should have seen these issues immediately, and I don't know who was testing their game or if they even tested it properly, but these things are so obvious even a blind person can see it. Also, if you consult SteamDB, not a lot changed in terms of player count, and this was hailed like some kind of anniversary update or whatever. So yeah, I don't know what Obsidian is doing. It's kind of worrisome to see what the hell is happening with that particular game developer, but it's not looking really good, so I'm kind of worried for Obsidian and the direction that their games are going towards. I guess if it was up to me, I would just accept this game as a loss, so to speak, and move onward and never talk about it and just completely forget it. Take the features that the game has that were praised universally, for example, loot indicators on minimap, good exploration vibes, that kind of thing, and just throw everything else in garbage and start new. Hell, abandon this whole shenanigan with the, first person, third person kind of a thing and just go back to what you were doing with Pillars of Eternity 1 and 2 and make Pillars of Eternity 3. But then again, the people who probably made those games are not there anymore because I don't think they would have made Avowed in such a way, particularly when it comes to, storyline or something along those lines. So yeah, I would say kill it before it lays eggs and just move onward. And speaking about killing, Stop Killing Games, founded by YouTuber Ross Scott, is launching NGOs in the EU and US to advocate for consumer rights regarding game preservation. The NGOs aim to influence legislation, provide watchdog functions, and raise awareness about the issue of game destruction. Ross Scott, while stepping back from direct involvement, will continue to support the movement and endorse initiatives. It's interesting what these people are trying to do in terms of preserving games, but from this particular situation, I'm more interested about consumer rights, so to speak. To be more precise, what happens when I have a product that I bought and then suddenly someone pulls a plug and I cannot use the product anymore. And that was always the problem in the gaming industry, so to speak. And recently what we've seen with BioWare's Anthem, which was a very bad game, but they still sold a lot of units. So what happens to the people who were enjoying this game? Do you give them refund or something like that? Or what's the deal with this? So this is basically the main aspect what I have in mind, which makes me think about games in the past, back in 2000s, when you just would put your CD drive inside, install the game and play it, and then, several years will pass and you will get a bit nostalgic and you will play the game again. And it would work every single time, no matter what you do. And on top of that, you wouldn't be stalled by compatibility issues because somehow, somewhere online, you would find an answer how to circumvent that so you can play that game again. I know because I was doing the same with the Knights of the Old Republic 1 and 2 when I decided to play it on Windows 8 when it was clear to me that the game was designed for Windows 98 or something like that. So basically my main focus here is to see whether or not the European Union, if they change something, would they force publisher to give the money back because the product that you have isn't a product at all anymore since it doesn't really function properly? It's definitely going to be interesting since the other side will lobby as well. Also, I have been reading online a bit about this particular situation, and then indie developers are also voicing their concerns how to do it from their point of view. And while it might be a complicated topic when you think about all the possible outcomes, so to speak, at the end of the day, for me, like I said, it's all about protecting a consumer. And if I'm going to be mega optimistic here, it would be nice to kill all those stupid live service games and go back to a time when you were playing proper single player games and all the live service garbage was, something that was removed from the whole single player experience. So you might want to put some kind of a disclaimer that we can kill this game whenever we want and you lose everything, and then, you have been warned, so to speak, so whether or not you want to invest more into that stuff, it's up to you. But yeah, this is going to be an interesting thing because European Union being slow as is because it's full of bureaucrats, it will definitely take a lot of time before anything major is going to happen. Speaking about major stuff, Ubisoft CEO admitted the company launched too many projects during the COVID boom, anticipating sustained demand that didn't materialize. This led to layoffs and project cancellations as the company aims to become more focused and agile. To be honest, this is just a bunch of horseshit as far as I'm concerned. If his main issue is that the company launched too many projects, and that's why they kinda failed, then this person needs to be fired immediately. There's no two ways about it. So I will pretend now that I'm a Ubisoft CEO, and I will actually say why this is happening. First of all, you're making bad games. That's number one. It's so obvious, everybody can see it. Second of all, you have very bad company culture. And we've seen many reports about both former and current Ubisoft employees speaking about what the hell is happening in that company. And third of all, you're making stuff that people don't really want to play. It doesn't have to be necessarily a bad game in that regard. It's just nobody asked for that. Take the recent example from Assassin's Creed Shadows. Nobody asked to play as a black samurai. It was just a gimmick that Ubisoft pushed out because they were, I don't know, breaking the stigmas or whatever the fuck you can conjure in your mind. Most of the people that I know wanted to play as a Japanese man samurai, not some random person of color or whatever. And you can call me racist, I don't give a shit, because it has nothing to do with race. It has to do with common sense. And apparently Ubisoft is lacking a lot of it, especially when you see what kind of stupid shit their CEO is talking about. So overall, if they want to lie to themselves why certain things are happening, they can do that. Being delusional is not a crime, far from it, but being delusional hurts people around you, and that's exactly what's happening in Ubisoft. You have delusional people pushing their agendas that make no sense whatsoever, and as a result, they are hurting the whole company, and by the whole company, I mean people who are losing their jobs now, just because someone wanted to be a social justice warrior or whatever. Because if you are going to put your opinions and your feelings in front of the collective, then there is something horribly and terribly wrong about you. Because the needs of the many outweigh the needs of a few. And if you don't understand that, particularly if you're a company that is there to generate money, and we all know the situation of Ubisoft stock at the moment, then there is no hope for you and you will perish. Very simple and very obvious situation. I talked about Bethesda already, but there is another story, and it's all about Todd Howards, Bethesda's head, saying that he is most proud of Fallout 76, despite its disastrous launch. He credits the game's redemption arc and the dedicated community for its success, noting its impressive staying power in the industry. I like Todd Howards, he seems like a decent person, even though sometimes he lies a bit, but we will forgive him for that. But in this particular situation, saying that he is proud because of Fallout 76 surviving and players still engaging with it, I mean, what I can say about this is basically weird flex, but okay. I don't know what the man thinks, I'm not in his head, but to me it seems more reasonable and logical to be proud of Skyrim, for example, rather than Fallout 76. But again, that's just me, I would definitely never play that game, not because of the launch issues that the game had, that can eventually be fixed, but mostly because of its microtransaction and the atom shop and all that bullshit. When I see these things in game, it makes me want to vomit. And obviously they are still pushing this agenda because long term people will buy that shit and they will generate money, and when you look at the balance sheet at the end of the year, it will clearly say that this game generated so much revenue and it would be foolish to cancel it or shut it down or whatever. So from a corporate point of view, it's amazing because game is still alive and it has a decent player base. But from a gamer point of view, which is my point of view, I would say, yeah, it's shit, I will never play it, because of the predatory tactics, so to speak, that the game is full of. I have a friend who, for example, spent countless hours in that game and he likes it, but then I have another one who wouldn't touch it with a 7-foot pole or something like that. At the end of the day, if you're having fun with the game, awesome. If you're not and you have valid criticism that's not, you talking out of your own ass, then it's okay. Still, I am a bit shocked him saying this, and it seems to me like he's trying to do some kind of a damage control or push even more people through positive PR to play it. I don't know. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And speaking about not making a lot of sense, a new CEO of Microsoft Gaming emphasizes prioritizing great games with memorable characters and innovative gameplay. While acknowledging the role of AI in gaming, she stresses the importance of avoiding soulless AI slop and ensuring games retain their artistic essence. This is funny coming from her because she was a CEO for AI in Microsoft. So how can you take her word for granted and expect that she is going to make a, 180-degree turn when she was doing something completely different while she was the head of the AI division or whatever the fuck she was head of? Not to mention, she has zero gaming industry experience. If you do a bit of digging online, most of the things that she was doing is either marketing or core AI. So how the hell is she going to do something with Xbox, which is kinda in a bad situation, so to speak, because gaming revenue dropped around 9% last quarter and hardware sales fell 32%. Pretty much everything that Xbox was doing kinda underperformed. And then you take into account what Phil Spencer did, which basically he tripled the size through the $69 billion Activision Blizzard deal. But that also is shrinking. So yeah, this doesn't seem like a good decision from Microsoft, and I don't really see how they can do anything positive with the woman that has zero experience. She is just basically next in line. It reminds me of these politicians that, get the position just because they were long enough in the company and they are obedient soldiers and they will do whatever their overlords are saying just to keep the position. I have zero positive expectation out of this, but maybe they will prove me wrong. And that's basically it when it comes to the news that I covered this week. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, I encourage you to leave comments. I read all of them and I'm very happy interacting there with you guys. If you enjoyed this content, consider liking it and subscribing for more discussions like this. And that's it from me, until the next one.